For this one, let's run the clock back a few centuries, away from all the firearms, explosives, and microtransactions, into a simpler time in Ubisoft's Far Cry franchise. A time when men roamed the land with nothing but a spear and a bow. Actually, scratch that. How about just a bow? Can you beat Far Cry Primal with only a bow? The game begins as we, Takar, along with our tribe, try to hunt down a mammoth. For some reason, everyone else has a bow, but we're stuck with only a spear. So when our tribe isolates the smaller mammoth and initiates the hunt, all we can do is observe as they get wiped from our screen. The mammoth runs up the hill into a dead end where we continue observing. I was fully expecting this to be a player register kill only moment, but to my surprise, the mammoth goes down to one of our fellow tribesmen. The surprises don't stop there as a saber-toothed tiger swoops in to steal our kill. While our exhausted and thinned out group tries to put up a fight, the saber-toothed tiger wipes the remainder of our squad, and as a last resort, we jump off a ledge into a tidal drop. Once we regain consciousness, we see the man whose name I don't remember have a shard stuck deep into his ribcage. With his dying breath, he gives us a friendship bracelet and tells us to seek out the land of Oros. The first thing the game makes us do is craft a bow. Great! It then teaches the basics of hunting, gathering, and crafting. As we're setting up the camp for the night, Takar finds a broken arrow, which makes him believe some of his lost tribesmen are nearby. And on this impulse, we jump into the night searching for them.
No, this motherfucking bobcat, it's a mountain lion up something out here doodling. I'm looking at him today, dude, he doodling. No, see you.
The first real enemy encounter we skip completely since we're not strong yet. Inside the cave, we track down one of our lost tribes members. She's of course a bit mistrustful since we literally just spawned in front of her, and then our introduction gets interrupted by the same saber-tooth. Man, this thing is everywhere. It really owns the streets around here. Or perhaps for this era, it owns the caves around here. As we exit the cave, we see the land of Oros before us. With that, the prologue section is complete and we can fully start exploring the map. The first few moments of this game really makes you think about how simple it used to be. Hunt, eat, chill, and repeat. And then we decided to invent taxes and spreadsheets. Look, no technology in sight. Just people living in the moment. As we return to Sayla with the medicine to cover her wound, this marks the start of our village. Though calling two cave mates a village is quite far-fetched. It's like calling a public bus a luxury vehicle just because it's technically in the same price range as a Lambo. Before going any further, I decided to get a few upgrades. Straight up, we can spend one skill point to get an extra bar of health. Then hunt down those birds and bears to upgrade the quiver so we can have more arrow capacity. The bear is an absolute powerhouse at this stage in the game. However, there's always a way to game the system. With the looming threat of other tribes, Takar sets out to reunite the Venja people and populate our village of 2. He seeks out a shaman who, in typical shaman fashion, makes us drink the forbidden Kool-Aid. Through a spiritual trip, we follow an owl, and in the end, tame it. The owl essentially acts as binoculars, just from an aerial point of view. The shaman then brands us the Beastmaster, an ability we won't be using this playthrough. The second thing the shaman makes us do is tame a wolf. While on its scent, we eliminate a tracking party from the rival tribe, and upon the wolf encounter, we simply reach out our hand, indicating we mean no harm to the creature. If only our guy did that to the saber-tooth, maybe our tribe would still be alive. The next section wants us to utilize the wolf, but since it includes combat, we cannot do that. The game has no problem with me dismissing our new pet and sniping the enemy tribesmen with a bow. With the shaman joining the Venja, we build everyone a hut. Except ourselves, we still live in a cave. The housewarming party was a big hit in the Venja society, where the gifts consisted of clay cookies and wolf for welcome mats. But our expansion doesn't go unnoticed as we get raided by a rival tribe called the Udam. Since distance measurement hadn't been invented yet, Takar rushes Udam's chieftain Ul and quickly realizes he's a lot bigger up close. The chieftain leaves and we have to defend our village against the rival tribe's cave cave goons. I understand the concept of what is considered a gate today versus what it was back then is very different, but in no way can a bunch of twigs and leaves be called a gate. If anything, it should be called an inconvenience for the people stepping over it. Then there are a few more encounters before we launch a counter-offensive and raid one of their camps. We clear the camp and destroy the bone totems by launching a flaming arrow and waiting for them to burn down. When we go back to our village, the shaman makes us drink another trippy potion, and we see through the eyes of Uram. Literally, he made us drink eyeballs. For this section, we're given nothing but a club, and while a good chunk of it can be skipped by simply running, a stopping point happens where we must fight. It's possible to make them hit each other, but it's not something I wanted to do, at least not on this scale. And besides, you literally have to throw the club at the statue. While the purity of the challenge is slightly diluted, forced weapon sections do happen. We then go seek out even more lost Venja people, starting with Jaima the Huntress. In order for her to join our village, we must convince her by hunting down a bear. I decided to go through with it even though it was nighttime. Now the daytime is already deadly. You can be just chilling, minding your own business, then have an elk drive by ram you for no reason whatsoever. But the nighttime is even worse with the predator spawn rate amplified. At one point there were two packs of wolves fighting. When they saw me, they put their differences aside and started chasing me instead. This took so long that by the time I did track the bear down, it was already morning. I set it on fire and did a bit of cardio while it burned down. Once it's over, Jaima comes to our village. While trying to recruit the next fellow, we fall into a trap and get on the receiving end of a golden shower. The man taking the leak is a crazy dude called Voga. He doesn't believe we're Venja and leaves us to die. Somewhere deep inside this cave, we locate the grappling claw, and with its help climb out. When we come back to the crazy dude, he brands us the piss man, but I'm sure the same can be said about him considering his involvement. But anyways, with the crazy dude joining our village, the last guy to recruit is a warrior named Karosh. He's seeking vengeance against the Uram for the loss of his son. We help him fight off the Uram warriors, and upon completion, he gives us the Scandinavian greeting and joins the Venja. When we get back to the village, we build huts for the newcomers. And with that comes the second wave of upgrades. We can fully upgrade our bow to level 2, and we can also upgrade our quiver to the maximum level by completing Volga's mission, which involves climbing the Peak of Oros and collecting rare feathers. This allows us to carry 48 arrows at once. Jaima also has a perk that lets us craft more arrows from a single piece of hardwood. Combined with the fact that you can upgrade your inventory space and hold 32 wood, on paper my arrow capacity jumps to 304. We also take winter clothing, which allows us to enter deeper regions of the north without having to worry about the cold. As I was traveling to my next destination, I came across a cave bear, and I was in need of a few cave bear pelts. After a fierce battle, I was just about to pick them up when... I have no idea what happened. I guess he was off to Hogwarts. After that disappointment, I decided to stick around and get the bear pelts. But the second encounter was not so favorable. The third time, when I finally bested the beast... Don't you think about doing that again. Then, per Jaima's request, we go hunt down a tall elk. It only roams during nighttime, and you would not believe your eyes, but when I fell asleep, the whole world was filled with fireflies. They filled the open air and left teardrops everywhere, which I used to track down the elk. It was a magnificent creature, so I just stood there and stared, before realizing that an enemy tribe is also actively trying to hunt it down. This turns into a race who can hunt it first. I quickly eliminate the competition before chasing after the elk. As it was running away, it kind of tricked me and did a 180. Fortunately, it was already low, so after launching a few arrows, it goes down. Next, we do a favor for the crazy fellow and go recover totem scraps, split between 3 carriers that must be killed and looted. I managed to get one, but the other 2 fled into a nearby camp, so that meant fighting the whole camp. With the crazy man's totem restored, Sayla sends us to track down the missing hunter. The poor fella got lost in a cave and is surrounded by cave lions. Trying to shoot a bow at point blank range while it's pitch black is not a fun experience. And the devs thought it would be funny to add a saber-tooth to the mix. I managed to take down the saber-tooth with a combination of fire and more fire. Gave the wounded hunter his medicine and moved on to drive by an Udom camp on a mammoth. Everything in this mission can be killed or destroyed with a bow. The mammoth is a formality for the mission. We then come back to the village. Those cave paintings can be that good. Never mind, the shaman has another dude over, and we get the news that he had a run-in with yet another tribe, the Sun People, or as the game calls them, Izila. They abducted some Venja and are going to sacrifice them to their god. We sneak into their camp, kill the Sun People, and free the Venja. As we're done ravaging their camp, a tribe goon hits us with a flying club. As we regain consciousness, we meet Batari. She sizes the car by slightly jerking it, and when we refuse to serve her, she throws a tantrum and tosses us into a death pit. However, we escape through a flooded tunnel. We then travel north and follow a trail of dead bodies Karish left behind, while adding a few of our own to the tally. Karish is in really rough shape, and besides him is Mog, the guy who killed his son. And well, Mog got out-mogged. Karish is fine with bleeding out, knowing he got his son's killer, but Takar insists he continues. Since I already had the medicine on me, there was no need to get more, so we can instantly give Karish the medicine and prepare a safe passage out of the cave. Once both of them are saved, they share a brotherly bond by one-upping each other, and Karish can rest knowing he avenged his son's death. When we go back to the village, the shaman makes us drink more jungle juice. But this time we trip out and see the Sun People. The game hands us a bow, which is amazing since that's what it's all about. We destroy the village, some stones, the moon. Yeah, that's one strong brew. The shaman really outdid himself. We then go to Far Cry's favorite reoccurring idiot, Urki. His current obsession is learning how to fly, and we help him by collecting feathers among other things. I snipe a bird out of the sky, totally first try by the way, and then we give him a whole 2 feathers. He takes to the skies, and like many before him, Urki didn't make it. Never mind, natural selection hasn't been invented yet. This time he asks us to bring him some rocks so he can craft himself some stone armor. But not just any rocks. Special rocks. What makes them special? I don't know, but they were scattered around one of the Sun People's camps. After slaughtering a camp for some rocks, Urki makes himself the armor, and we enter the testing phase, during which Urki unfortunately passes away. Alright, I'm wrong again. I guess he crafted himself some plot armor with those stones. His third and final request is to produce a sting so he can scare a bear. We grab a bunch of ingredients before taming a brown bear. And for this one, you can't just hurt him. We must command the bear to attack. But just like all the previous times, he lives. So I guess no harm done.
Delicious! Long to delicious! Oh, no. Ah!
We head north to find a rare yellow leaf that will help us against the Udom's poison gas. But as we're about to pick up the plant, an ambush happens, and Ul makes an appearance. After giving his little speech, he leaves, and we find a conveniently placed grappling hook inside our prison cell. I grab my stuff next to the cave goon guarding it, and now have to navigate this cave system in order to escape. Thankfully, it isn't linear, and when I stumbled upon a pile of rocks I couldn't destroy, I just continued walking until another cave entrance presented itself. Crawling like this through a cave brought back some memories from Skyrim doing a stealth archer build. Good times. When we get back to the village, Sayla makes us the anti-poison, and then the shaman suggests we raid the Sun People's camp and steal a mask belonging to Kratty, who the Sun People fear shall resurrect and bring the end of the world. Of course, that's a bunch of heathen nonsense. Everyone knows only our legends and stories are correct. Despite me raising the whole camp, somehow Batari and a few of our cave goons managed to get a jump on us. Through fast thinking, we stabbed the bitch in the ear with the same arrow that was shot at us. Shout out to Carr for staying committed to the challenge. This whole place is a maze, or at least it felt like it because I got lost at least twice. When we bring the mask back to the shaman, he... I'm not wearing that, it was dripping in. Oh, Oh, why does this keep happening? Perhaps the crazy dude was right. I am the piss man. I should just embrace it. With much of the surrounding land being conquered back by the Venja, we go after the rival tribe's commanders, starting with Urums. The battle is essentially a beefed up outpost, with the commander acting as a boss. While he's strong, he's also very slow and easy to hit. We best the big fella and move on to do the same at one of the Izila camps. Both enemy commanders become our latest forced recruits. At one point, when we go to check up on the big fella, we find him missing, and Sayla's there acting all smug. She went against our wishes and organized him a wet Wenja welcoming party. If I were the chieftain of this village, I would order her 10 lashes. Wait, I am the chieftain. Nay, the founding father of this village. Why am I even tolerating this? The wet Wenja welcoming party is similar to a wet willy. Only instead of a wet finger in your ear, you get submerged underwater for 3 full moons. I know, but what can you do? Kids and their pranks. We then stop the practical joke, and the youth are, of course, dissatisfied. And Takar is finally starting to make sense. We bring the big fella into the Venja. We decide what to do with him. Now, the big fella is a kind soul, as far as cavemen go. But due to inbreeding within the Urum tribe, he developed what he calls skull fire, which causes bursts of rage and uncontrollable violence. While his mind is still sound, he pledges his allegiance to us and asks us to bring him bone dust to soothe the skull fire. We pillage one of Urum's camps, searching for it, and then give it to the big fella. Meanwhile, the Sun People's commander bargained his way out of prison by revealing that some people possess a seed that, if planted in the ground, will grow into food. We go secure that piece of technology and fend off any resistance thrown our way. When we get back to the commander, he's tweaking out because apparently the Sun People are planning a raid in our village. They saw him being taken prisoner, and with the seeds being stolen, they put 2 rocks together and figured out our latest recruit is a squealer.
I know the squealers when I see them.
So instead of waiting for them to raid our village, we raid theirs. It's a plain burn their houses made of straw mission, and upon its completion we move on to fighting the actual leaders of the enemy tribes. I start with Ol since we're still holding a grudge against him invading our village. Upon entering his land, there are a few outposts like camps to be conquered before entering his cave. Ul is an absolute bullet sponge. Sorry, arrow sponge. Even though we arrived with about 300 arrows, if we let him, he'll eat all of them. So we must utilize the hanging stalactites, not to be confused with stalagmites. The difference being one is shaped like a T for stalactite, and the other is shaped like an M for stalagmite. What will you do with this information? I don't know, go impress people from the Rock Society. After a long and dragged out fight, we best Ul. We realize he did everything because his whole tribe was plagued by the skullfire thing. And as an honorable warrior, honor his dying wish and take in his children. The village rejoices knowing there's one less threat to worry about. But the big fella can't go on with the skullfire. And since we bested all, he sees us as the ultimate fighter. We honor his wish as well by putting him to rest. And with that bittersweet ending, the Urum saga is complete. The only ones left are the Izila. Similar to Urum, when we entered their lands, we attacked their camps. Only this time, we freed the imprisoned Venja. With enough of them freed, we managed to set up a siege. One fella gets hit with an arrow and then immediately gets squashed by our bridgestone. I'm sure that's not how he imagined his day going. Then we put on the piss mask and scare the villagers because they believe this is some sort of punishment from their gods. Batari, however, doesn't buy into it and destroys the mask, ending our playtime. The boss battle that follows comes in stages. We must snipe her before she snipes us, and a single snipe from her takes almost 4 bars of health. 2 of those and Takara goes to sleep. After a certain percentage of her health is removed, she summons her sun goons. This back and forth continues until she decides to enter the arena, where, well, nothing really changes. She goes down, her god does not answer her prayers, and with that, the Zila are dealt with. We go back to our village. Everyone is, of course, ecstatic with the news that there isn't an existential threat to Venja. The Sun People commander is promoted to commander of the fields, and with that, the game is complete. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. And yeah, thank you all for watching. and I'll see you in the next one.